The following program is underwritten by the Nevada Irrigation District. Since 1921, providing clean and healthy drinking and irrigation water to more than 24,000 homes, farms, schools, and businesses in Nevada and Placer counties.
Hi, I'm Lou Sitzer, host of Nevada County Television Interviews, NCTV Interviews. Thanks for watching. Today we are going to begin a celebration, for at least here at NCTV, of the 50th anniversary of Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital. And we have with us today Kimberly Parker, who is the Executive Director of Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital Foundation, and Orlo Steele, who is a member of the historical committee that is commemorating the 50th anniversary. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Lou.
Great to have you. And we're going to learn a lot about the history of the hospital. And we're going to be doing it in 3 parts. This is the first of a 3-part series, starting way back when. So, Kimberly, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction as to how the idea of planning for this yearly celebration is taking place?
Well, the hospital, as we started to think about the 50th anniversary about a year and a half ago, we were trying to determine what we wanted to do. And one of the decisions that was made was this was a very important year and we wanted to celebrate throughout the entire year. So there's going to be a whole variety of things that happen, and the piece that we're here to talk to you today, which is really the fun and interesting part that's going on right now, is we've been doing a lot of exploration and research into the history not only of the hospital, but as Orla is going to talk about today, early health care in Western Nevada County. And we came up with so much information that we broke it down into 3 separate pieces. And it's not only our ability to come out and be on your show and talk about this at other places within the community, but we're also going to have a physical exhibit, and we're going to have some print information, and really ways that the community can share, a lot of historical interest, in this topic with us. And then throughout the year, of course, we'll do fun things. We're going to have some small events. The foundation does a number of events that we're going to commemorate the 50th. We'll be doing Silver Ball next November, and that will be kind of our gala for the 50th anniversary. And we're really working hard to find big and small ways that our community can help us celebrate.
I know when I think of the hospital, I think of more than 50 years. I think that we're going to be learning about the origins of, as you say, of medicine in Nevada County. Orlo, what brought you into this? What got you interested?
I wasn't able to say no to an old fraternity brother of mine by the name of Dr. Jerry Angove, who is the president of the foundation, but we go way back together, and he asked me to participate.
And your family has had, we were talking earlier in the show, roots in the community for a long time.
Yes, since 1942.
And so you've, in a sense, followed the development of the hospital as well as other facets of the community.
Yes, there's several photographs you'll see in this segment, which people are probably unaware of, but I remember as a young boy that were very active.
So in beginning to sort of uncover the history of the hospital, what paths of research did you pursue?
Well, first of all, we're indebted to a lot of the local historians, people like Bob Wyckoff and everything else, who has written extensively on this subject. And of course, so most of our research, and we have a very active committee who have gone out, and we just kind of compiled all of this together, both in terms of photographs, and people have been very, very helpful and generous with their own collections and have contributed to this effort. So we just tried to pick out kind of samples for each of the periods as this evolved.
And this fits in a number of ways, not only with NCTV and the historical archives we try to establish, but I would imagine you're still welcoming people in the community who have stories, photographs, anecdotes about the hospital and their experiences.
Absolutely, and people have been very, very helpful indeed. For example, Malcolm Hamill was very instrumental with the Foundation Committee after the death of Earl McBoyle in the early 1950s, and his daughter, Sylvia Crane, has given us many kind of insights into what was going on at that particular time.
And that's another topic at some point I want to pursue, is the McBoyles and how, I don't know if anything has been done, but that's an important part of our history.
Yes.
So how long have you been working on this project?
I believe we started when Kimberly.
Oh, well, we started actually the planning about a year and a half ago. I'd say the history committee's probably been meeting a good 7-8 months.
Yeah, about 6 or 7 months.
On this part of it, and as I said, there are many facets of this. We have our history committee. We have a committee working on the marketing. There's actually a committee at the hospital that's working, within the hospital arena about how, they're going to celebrate with employees and physicians. And we just came out of Hospital Week last week, and that's where we unveiled this very first phase of this exhibit, is over at the Hospital Week.
Well, when you consider how central and important the hospital is to our community, I'm anxious to start learning. So why don't we begin to look at some of the historical photographs, and you can, Orlo, take us through. And this first slide indicates Kimberly and Orlo's position in terms of the hospital, and gives you some contact numbers and websites that we will be also bringing up throughout the show. So don't worry about copying these numbers down at the moment, but know that your input is welcome.
This particular first photograph, this was the idea of Nancy Clinch, who was a member of our committee and whose father was very active when we started the hospital. But this is known as Medicine Rock. As you know, there's probably several of these, particularly in Nevada City, but this is the one on Broad Street in Nevada City, where a local Native American legend suggests that this hollow atop this huge granite boulder was used by the Maidu tribesmen to relieve aches and pains, and by soaking up the sunshine from this vantage point.
When we first started to do the history, Lou, I'm not sure if we mentioned that, our first approach really was about the hospital, but Orlo found such incredible information, that this first phase really deals with pre-hospital. The phase we're talking about today really is from 1852 to 1952, because one of the things we found is there was so much more in the whole arena of health, going on than we realized. I mean, there are a couple places people will see mentioned today that I think come to everyone's mind. But, way back when, the Maidu Indians were doing things in the region. And so we really decided this was the time to celebrate that period as well.
And of course, this practice of rock medicine dates continues today at the Yuba River, where we go in summertime to heal ourselves.
Yes.
So this is great. Actually, where do you start with medical practices?
Right.
So.
Right.
Should we go to the next?
This gentleman that's photographed here, it was an early physician here in Nevada County. It's Dr. Robert M. Hunt, who arrived in Nevada City as a gold seeker in 1850 from Utica, New York. Although he enjoyed some success as a miner, he soon came to the belief that he could best serve the community by returning to medicine. And in 1852, he joined someone by the name of Spence, and they began to dispense medicines in Nevada City, and then he opened up his own practice at an office on 36 Main Street, where he was later joined by his brother Harvey, also in that practice. In 1859, Hunt was designated county physician and supervisor of the county hospital. He goes on to do that for almost half a century. He died in 1904, and he was still practicing medicine then. But
well, it just shows you that doctors are always needed, and there's probably it was a shortage then, like we talk about now.
Exactly. Not all the early physicians were males. In this photograph, you'll see seated is Nellie Chapman. Mm-hmm. And she's there with a friend, Molly Colby, and she was one of the first dentists here in the city. Actually, she was married to a dentist who went off to the Comstock when most of his clients went over to follow the Silver Lode. And so she had been assisting him. She got her own dentist license and became the first female dentist here in the Pacific Coast as well as in California.
Wow.
And there was also a Dr. Pfizer trained in Germany who came here in the 1850s as well.
So it wasn't a place just to find gold. It was a place to start a new life, in a way.
And in a directory that went back, we found that early as 1855, right where the Nevada Theater is today, there was also a small clinic there, and it was headed up by a doctress there as well. So didn't give the name. This is Dr. William McCormick. He was 36 and already an established medical profession. When he came west in 1849, he arrives in Grass Valley and becomes one of the longest standing physicians in Grass Valley and a very prominent member of the community there. In the early days, the county took over some responsibility for providing medical facilities, used to rent houses and that sort of thing in downtown. This is one of them next, as you'll see, next to the
Hotel
de Paris.
Hotel de Paris. So they weren't always in the best parts of town and usually in high rent. And so they eventually discontinued this practice and built their own.
So which town?
That's Nevada City.
Because I haven't seen the Hotel de Paris before.
No.
And so this is a great photograph.
And and this comes from Ron Sturgill's collection, there was also, you'll find in the directories, there was an Ile de Paris in Grass Valley in later years. So I don't know if it became a chain or not. But
Right. So we should continue with this. This is beginning to look familiar now.
Yes. Now this is one that'll be familiar to a number of people. They moved their hospital to this location, which is up in Willow Valley Road, about 3/4 of a mile from the center of town. And they built this hospital, which originally was 20 feet by 30 feet. Several years later, they added it on to what you've seen in this photograph. As I mentioned before, Dr. Hunt was designated the hospital supervisor. And people usually refer to it as the Hunt Hospital. This hospital, of course, underwent several expansions and closures until its closure in 1973 and has been used for other purposes by the county since then. But this was the county hospital on Willow Valley Road in Nevada
Well, I
City.
remember in '73, it was the time that our first child was born here. And we wanted to have her birth take place at this location, and it was just at the transition from this old site to the new one. And so instead, she was born at the new site. But it was we were hoping, we wanted, the old General Hospital had a lot of charm to it.
Yes, that's right. It later became the General Hospital, initially county. This gentleman here became very well known and respected, Dr. William C. Jones, who was born in Tennessee in 1833 and studied a couple of years in medicine until he caught the gold fever and struck out for California. Later, he completed his medical studies here in California at Cooper Medical College in San Francisco, which later I think became part of the Stanford Lane, as far as I can tell. There becomes a connection there. And then he worked with the railroad as a physician building the railroad, eventually settling in Truckee, and then in 1874 he and his children and family here to Grass Valley, where he becomes one of those horse and buggy physicians who became so well known, and he was very highly regarded. They said he would be out in all types of weather and rain or shine and everything else, attending to his patients who could not come around back in here, but very, very highly regarded back in here. This was a home originally that belonged to a family by the name of Camel, but Dr. W.C. Jones had 3 sons who followed him in the path of medicine, and that was his oldest son, who was Will, and then the next son, who was John, and then another son, who was Carl. They all become doctors, and Dr. John bought this property, which is on Church Street in Grass Valley, in 1907, and actually it was about 1905, I think he bought it, and then they converted it into a hospital known as the W.C. Jones Memorial Hospital. Today we know it as the Swan Levine Bed and Breakfast Inn.
Right, where Howard and Peggy reside.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this became a hospital and continued as a hospital up until I think it was 1968.
And it really hasn't much changed
No.
in its appearance.
No, and in fact, there are parts of the house that they still have original pieces in. And down at the St. Joseph's Cultural Center in the Grass Valley Museum, they have a lot of the original, pieces down there as well. And Peggy's been very, very wonderful about letting, people see those.
The operating room, white tiled, still is there.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Back in here.
It's no longer an operating room.
No.
Right. Before we turn to this next photograph, let me just say that Dr. John, who really ran the hospital, was a very, very fine physician and was known for his skill, and also the first one to introduce x-rays here in Nevada County. Sadly, however, he goes on a holiday at the old Del Coronado Hotel outside of San Diego, dives into the Pacific Ocean, hits the sand, and he has permanent damage to his spinal cord. Ooh. And so Dr. Carl Jones, his brother, who was seen in this photograph in here, actually takes over the hospital. And Dr. John lives on until 1917, but dies at a fairly early age. But that was right at the height of his career. He suffered an injury that kept him bedridden virtually for the next of the time. Going back to Dr. Dr. Carl Jones, he establishes a very, very fine practice and realizes, and particularly in the 1930s, that he cannot, the W.C. Jones Hospital was inadequate for the way the population was growing. And so he has a dream of building a new hospital, and the person here in this photograph, who is Earl McBoyle, shares that dream, and together, the two of them, and along with a Judge Zook from San Rafael, California, form a corporation which is known as the Grass Valley Memorial Hospital Corporation. It's the forerunner of the Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital, but it's then Grass Valley Memorial. And they put together a dream and begin to plan for a very modern hospital, which was located between Grass Valley and Nevada City, right above the hill, on the hill above the golf course. And as you know, Earl McBoyle was a mining engineer who kept faith in the Idaho-Maryland property, which he gains control of in the mid-1920s, by 1926, I think, and then they develop and eventually becomes a $40 million profitable mine, and he was a great philanthropist and always remembered his roots, and he wanted to share some of that wealth with the community and put it in, and join Dr. Jones with this plans for a memorial hospital. And they do put that together. This is a model of the hospital.
The original Grass Valley Hospital, correct?
The Grass Valley Memorial Hospital. And the two of them visualize this as the Mayo Clinic of the West.
And just so our public knows, this is not in the location where our current hospital is. This is actually up on what most people know as Lytton Hill.
Lytton Hill, or it was actually called the Prisk Ranch. It was a 156 acre ranch. It included the Nevada County Golf Course in the early days, by the way.
This reminds me more of Lytton Hill and the structure that's up there, which was, of course, intended to be a hospital.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So that's that model, and Dr. Carl Jones traveled to the Mayo Clinic and even to Germany to look at the latest types of medical features and what could be introduced here, and the two of them planned what was to be about $1 million hospital back in here. This is the groundbreaking for that hospital. Photos taken in 1938. On the extreme right is Earl McBoyle there in his boots. In the center with the shovel is Dr. Carl Jones. And the gentleman standing with the blueprints in his hand was the architect, Mr. Clifford, taken in 1938.
Now, whatever happened to this hospital? Maybe we'll get into this with this next slide.
Yes. This is one of the hospital probably taken about 1941. And at this stage, they had invested $425,000 into the hospital. And it was about almost at its 80% completion date, 1941. And all they had to do was to finish off the interior and then, of course, equip it. And that was anticipated to be about another $500,000, bringing up to about $1 million. And after Pearl Harbor, then they had to suspend all further construction because the critical materials just were not available. And so they had to just put it away for a while. And unfortunately, in 1944, Dr. Carl Jones dies. So there goes part of the dream. And then in the late 1940s, Earl McBoyle suffers several debilitating strokes, probably brought on by some stress over some legal actions on control of the Idaho, Maryland property, as well as the hospital board itself. Eventually, he dies in 1949, and frankly, that just kind of sucked all the air out of the whole dream at that particular time. And they were never able to quite get the interest to build that back up again after World War II. And so it kind of sat in limbo, always trying to do this.
Then at some point the Lyttons picked it up.
Well, no, and the other piece of it was, and my understanding was after the war, regulations had changed for health care, and that the facility as it had been built did not meet regulations for hospitals any longer. So that became problematic as well.
In many respects, it just when the codes had changed and that sort of thing. But the basic outline, every room was to be facing east, and the patients' rooms, and they would get that morning sun, and they had really put a lot of thought into this. And so that never quite got off the ground.
And then this is Miners Hospital.
Now this was kind of an interesting, where McBoyle and, now this is Miners Hospital, which was built by the Newmont Mining Company for its employees who worked at the Empire Star, the Zybrite Mines, Murchie, Pennsylvania. And kind of a hospital plan where the employees would pay something like 50 cents a month and have pretty good medical care right in here. This was a 20-bed hospital, as you can see, more modest than what they had, 125 bed the others had planned, but that was started in 1940 when that opened.
And just recently it has closed.
Yes.
So.
And Dr. Reed and Dr. Norb Fry were the physicians attending there.
Right. Yeah, now we want to give some credit.
I was going to say, I have to say, when you're talking about photos from the 1800s up to the early 1900s. It was quite challenging to find, photos. And not only did this group, we had others that helped with the exhibit as well, contribute to this. We were finding things in old articles, et cetera. You couldn't always find the original photos. So we really do want to give credit to the people who've helped us out on this.
And Mr. Linton, by the way, to answer your question, enters the scene about 1952. And we have original, including hand correspondence from Charlie Linton negotiating for that hospital.
His dad, yeah.
And we may get into that in a later program.
Exactly.
And here is the hospital as it now appears. Not all of it, but at least a hint of what's to come.
Well, and again, yes, this is going to be the next phase because we've taken you up to a period before this hospital was started because there's, as you can see, this is a program full right here, and next time we come, we'll talk about the time that the land was secured for the hospital and the interesting, fun things that happened as the actual Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital site was developed.
And I think we have time for one mention about the Stroke of Luck campaign as being part of the 50th anniversary.
We wanted to find something that our community could do for our hospital during the 50th. And our hospital has been working to become nationally certified as a primary stroke center. And as Orlo mentioned, we lost Mr. McBoyle, and to stroke, and it all just seemed like a beautiful fit. So we are raising $100,000, of which we are a little over 50% of the way through both big gifts and small gifts, and hope to finish that campaign over the next few months so that by early to mid-fall that we will be all set up and our hospital can become nationally certified as a primary stroke center, which is not only an incredible benefit for our hospital, but an incredible benefit for our community as well.
Well, I want to thank you both, Kimberly Parker, Executive Director of Sierra Nevada Memorial Foundation. Orlo Steele, it's a pleasure to have met you, and I hope that you'll both be back. I know that you'll both be back to continue the series about the hospital. I want to thank Gail Woodman and Marilyn Blom, volunteers, Bill Carquest, our engineer, in helping with today's program. We thank you for watching and supporting NCTV. Please continue to do so. We'll have more coming. Thank you.